Stop all the clocks from 9 to 5. Tempo, tempo, tempo. Tempo. It's all about tempo. It's all about tempo the last 6-7 days, hasn't it? Well, as far as I'm concerned, you've got to make sure you're going in the right direction before you start speeding up. If you go in the wrong direction, why do you want to go there any quicker than you actually should? Get all the component parts right. Make sure you got the parts of the right size, that they work properly, and then you get that engine functioning in the right manner. And then you worry about how fast it's going to go. I'm sorry to kind of try and smother one buzzword with another, but tempo meet rebuilds. And don't get me wrong, Derek McInnes, I'm not slagging MD for going on and on about tempo, because it was Derek McInnes that put the words into your mouth with his post-match reaction to last Thursday's first leg. He said it wasn't quick enough. They need to move the ball a bit quicker. Then he mentioned the T word, and it's been repeated endlessly, I think, for the last week by all observers, of which I am one, let's be fair, but just get it right, get the plan right, just make sure you're headed in the right direction, get the right bits in there, it will get quicker, but that's not the point here. I'm in the Criterion Closet collection. I knew the pod was doing well, but I didn't realise just how well it was doing until they invited me into the Criterion Closet, the famous Criterion Closet, and George Clooney just away there, and I mean, you still would, it's the eyes, you never really lose it. In that, I mean, the other bits might start drooping and all that, but the eyes are just absolutely gorgeous. So you know how this works. I've got to pick a few. They're everywhere. I'm surrounded by so many to choose for. I've got to pick a few. You get Curzon, Artificial Eye, Handmade Films, A24, Canal Plus, Deutscher Rundfunk, all that kind of stuff. You've got all your art house, independent kind of movie producers, distributors, and you've got to try and pick a few of your favourites, and there's so many to choose from. I think I've got 15 of it here. I don't know where to start first. I'm just have to do this kind of quickly to get on me talking about the film. I mean, I could be here all day. I could be here all day, obviously, but we'll go with a classic straight away. One of my favourite films of all time. It's Kieslowski, not a bit original, Kieslowski, but Three Colours White for the Three Colours trilogy. This is the second one. It's a black comedy. There's the beautiful Julie Delpy there, but it's a big new Zamakowski who plays Carol. I used to work with a woman called Carol. A woman spelled with a C, like her first name's Carol, and then she married a guy whose second name was Carol. She was called Carol. Little, and this was in the kind of mid-80s, right up until about 1990. Little did I know it was teeing me up for the Carol with 2 Ks. A Polishman, Rangers get put out by Jaguar. We're here to talk about films, but it's a fantastic movie. Three Colours, Kieslowski stuff's always pretty intense. I think it's the middle, it's the white, obviously, of the blue, white, and red, the French tricolour, the French national flag, and it's the theme, the 3 different films. It's liberty, equality, fraternity. I've got them all, but this one is by far my favourite, just one of my favourite films of all time. It's so positive, it's so just life-giving. It's a phenomenal film. I'm pretty sure it's all about the former Eastern Bloc countries, just after the fall of the Berlin Wall and Glasnost and Perestroika and all that kind of stuff, and they're trying to join like the EU. And I think that Carol, he can't get it up. He's impotent, and he's married this beautiful hairdresser. He can't even speak French properly as French hairdresser, because he's a hairdresser himself. They met at a hairdressing conference. And it's a cultural exchange that they used to have, and it's representing the former Eastern Bloc countries now try to become part of the West, to try to get in the EU, and how they've always fantasised about what that would be like, when they were under the awful communist, basically run by the Soviet Union. And then they get there, this idealised version, this ideal they have of what it'd be like to be part of West, and they can't really get it up. It's no working out because they've got other issues that they've still got to deal with. And that's embodied by his pal, who's suicidal. And it's the scene where he's supposed to shoot him, and he's paying him, Carol. But Carol, he can't speak French very well. He can't make love to his beautiful wife, and she hates him for that. She's really cruel, Julie Delpy. The way that the French, we've got this basic sympathy, the French, the British, the Germans, and that for Eastern European people back in the early 90s, but then when they couldn't really live up to what we were needing them to do, but just discarded them and let them go on with dealing with their own demons, because they've been repressed, these people. much more than we ever were in the West. But he goes and he fights. There's that scene where he's been with his mate and he's been outside her flat, his former home, and you can see through the curtains that Dominique is actually making love with another guy, and it's breaking his heart. And he goes down into the metro, and the ticket machine won't give him, his carnet, the BA. He gets his tickets, but he doesn't get the right change. Or no, it's the phone. It's the phone. I think it's the phone. He's trying to phone her, and for the metro station from a public payphone, and it takes his money without putting him. And he just goes up to the guy, the counter, and the guy's like, I don't. You could just be having me on, kind of thing. I'm not giving you money. But he demands his money back. He just persists in his poor French, and that's the start. That's the start of him getting everything back and become. It's a beautiful movie. And the thing I always remember about that is there's a bit where it's obviously representing Dominique. He gets this beautiful. It's a bust, a ceramic bust, almost porcelain, a beautiful nymph-like female head. And it's white, and he has that. He keeps that with him, and when he ends up, it's really funny how he ends up back in Poland. He goes in a suitcase, basically. He smuggles himself back into Poland, and he gets beaten up. But it's hilarious. And the ceramic head is broken. It's all kind of smashed into pieces. And he goes to see Whoopi Goldberg because she's a medium. And she says, I'll talk to Dominique for you. And then she's talking to Dominique and she can't see him. And he says he loves you. He says, and Dominique's like, he would never say he loves me. And he's like, no, tell her I said ditto. I used to always say ditto. And she's like, he says ditto. And that's when Dominique knows. And she goes, and thanks to get the ceramic head put back together, she goes through to the wee table. Then she's the clay stuff. And she's, and I think is it Righteous Brothers or something like that is playing in the background. And then he comes in behind her and he sits down, they're both all sticky now, and they've got the clay, and it's absolutely beautiful. And he goes to heaven. And she knows that's beautiful 3 colours white there, but it's Kozlowski. We'll get Joanna Hogg here. That's The Souvenir, executive produced by Martin Scorsese. I remember Souvenir 2 came out. I thought it's a cash-in. She's trying to turn this into a franchise. It's a total cash-in. It's probably the best sequel I've ever seen in my entire life. The Souvenir needs The Souvenir 2. I thought Joanna Hogg was being venal. You know what I mean? I love Joanna. Every film. I think the only stuff I haven't seen of hers is really early stuff in their student days, and this is her, played by John Byrne, and Tilda Swinton's daughter is representing, obviously, the Joanna Hogg back in her when she was becoming a director, when she was getting into films. Joanna Hogg, I mean, she's super, super posh and never hides it. She's decided, and it gets dealt with in The Souvenir. The Joanna Hogg character is trying to do a kind of worthy thing about the working classes at Sunderland or something like that. She's trying to do a kind of documentary film for her student, for her kind of graduation piece, if you like. And it's just no happening. She just can't get it going. So she just gives in to the fact that she's really, really posh, from a really, really posh background. Landed gentry almost, and she goes with that. And she tries to find a way to make that. And that's basically Joanna Hogg's career. She did like EastEnders. She directed episodes of EastEnders and London's Burning, Casualty and stuff like that. She earned her stripes. And I don't know if genuinely posh people don't see the point in her films. Is it just fascinating to me because the Exhibition, that's hilarious. Tom Hiddleston's in that. I don't really like Tom Hiddleston. He's a total Oxbridge type movie, but he's brilliant in the Joanna Hogg films. And Unrelated, he's sensational. What a prick! He's absolutely brilliant. And he's a wee kind of almost a cameo piece as a sleazy estate agent in Exhibition, the house that they're trying to sell. And then this is, of course, Archipelago, Joanna Hogg. It's on BBC iPlayer just now, I would watch The Eternal Daughter. It's if you or anybody you know has lost their mother, and it's the one of the most amazing films I've ever seen in my life. I've watched it 2 or 3 times. It is a phenomenal film, The Eternal Daughter. I would get that watched. It's on iPlayer right now. But Archipelago, Tom Hiddleston is hilarious in the character he plays in that, and you get the whole thing with the guinea fowl was undercooked. They're on holiday in the Scilly Isles, and that's what makes it so posh. Because it's like I'm like, from a Drawson kind of working class, and I'm like, I would go to Scarborough or Blackpool or something like Great Yarmouth when I was a kid, and then maybe as I got to their kind of age, I would want to go to Spain or Portugal or something like that for my holidays, for my jollies, but they're all going to the Sevillareals because they're posh, and they've got this cook here, and she wanted to tell the woman at the famous dinner table scene where in the restaurant where she, the guinea fowl, it's totally undercooked, it comes pink, and it's humiliating. It's like a comedy of manners type thing. They're on holiday, and they end up. They go into like a hot tub. They've got a hot tub at the back of the place, and they're all getting drunk, and they spill their drinks into it, and they get up. They kind of pass out. Something weird happens because it's not Joanna Hogg. She does kind of mystical, magical stuff, magical realism, and they go into this bar that's in the kind of compound, the kind of complex, holiday complex that they're in, and it's all 1980s stuff that's on the television, not like Ronald Reagan and that, and everybody at the bar and all that is wearing kind of 1980s gear, and they think it's a theme night or something, but then they all end up in the toilets. They go to the toilets in this place because they're a bit freaked out by it all. And they see in the mirror reflections of themselves when they were younger. When the first time they came here, when they were like 16, 17, and they're all, they've got that same energy. They're trying to get off with their girlfriends. And basically all the regrets they've had throughout their life, it started when they were at that age, and it turns out their mate, who's actually trying to kill himself at the beginning of the film, he's going to fight these guys who hate them because they're like arseholes. They think everybody's because it's the 1980s that they've been transported back to. It's the Reds under the bed thing that the same people now that are anti-Antifa and all that. It's the kind of anti-woke types you get in America. Back in the mid-80s, they were anti-communist, so everybody has been a communist, an excuse to beat folk up and all that. So, but they let him down again. But he ends up, he's fine because he stays on, right into his motley crew and all that, and he gets shares in Google. Because he knows he stays on, he's knowing what's going to happen. So when they eventually get the right concoction that drinks in the hot tub and they get back time, they know that everything's going to fit. You've got Heat, of course. It wouldn't be me, I'm like, I've got actually, there's two Heats here. That's the original one that came out just through the film. There's nothing, no extras, nothing. That's very Michael Mann. That's what came out back in about 1996, just after Heat had been at the cinema. And we had to wait about 10 years before we got the proper Heat DVD with the extras. Now these are on YouTube now, but obviously this is the Criterion collections. This is the Criterion closets. This is all these are all Blu-rays. But it's the greatest tribute I have seen to the Italian Job. It's an homage to the Italian Job. You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. Becomes the shape charge indicates that they are technically proficient because it doesn't even blow the whole door off. It just blows enough of a hole in the door for them to get in and get the money, get the loot, So it's like it's saying to Michael Caine and the Italian Job, no, this isn't going to be. We'll make sure it doesn't blow even the door off. Never mind the door, the whole thing. It's brilliant, and of course at the end of the Italian Job, it's the bullion, the precious metals, the gold is what does them in because they're stuck in that cliff and it's all balanced, really precariously balanced. If they try to get the gold, they're going to fall off the cliff in the van and all that. So, and the precious metals depository, it's the bullion, as Drucker says, when they realise that the police are watching them, they're like, no, just leave it, and they just walk away for the precious metals in this one. It's brilliant. It's like a sequel to the Italian Job, Heat, and I absolutely love it. And here we got an old classic here, the Criterion Collection. This is Rangers FC Champions League. It's copyright UEFA 1992. Oh, it's a while since I've seen this. I went to the cinema to see this match day one. I was there, the 2-each draw with Marseille, and looking back on it now, I mean, it's very, very money. It's because it's in this collection because it's old, because it's 30, 34, 35 years old now. But this is the very first time Rangers played in a European group stage. And it's the old days of Hollywood. You love that, a big lush production and all that. When you're working class and you just want everything to be glamorous. But then you get, like myself, you become more intellectual. You become better than other people, and you get more money through being really intellectual and properly posher than Joanna Hogg. And you start wanting to, you start to want a bit more street cred, don't you? You want to get things. You want to get into a group stage that's a bit more Ken Loach, a bit more like Riff Raff. You don't want the high production values. You just want a kind of down-to-earth story about real gritty people. You know, Riff Raff, Ken Loach, Riff Raff. It's the first time Robert Carlyle I'd ever seen Robert Carlyle. He just got out of jail and they're working on a building site and all that. It's all illegal. They're just making money, cash in hand stuff and all that. And it's a proper Ken. Like My Name Is Joe. It's tour de force. My Name Is Joe. But Robert Carlyle, First time I ever saw Robert Colourful, I'm sure it was in Riff Raff. He's like the Scottish De Niro, really, isn't he? Scottish. I mean, like the Americans get De Niro doing Raging Bull, Tour de Force. The Australians get Eric Bana doing a Chopper, kind of Tour de Force. The English have got Stephen Graham doing anything really, probably Compo, and This Is England is the Tour de Force of really kind of toxic, poisonous masculinity, feeling the pain and being very small. But Robert Carlyle and they're train spotting. He's a Scottish De Niro, Bobby Carlyle, and he first started in Riff Raff, and it's a bit like Ali, Fear Eats the Soul. We're doing Fassbinder now, but it's like Ali McCoy's Super Ali, Fear Eats the Soul, because Ali couldn't get a goal, could he, in the first ever Champions League group stage, didn't he? Despite scoring against Leeds, the goal that got us there, basically, in that group stage, didn't he score at all? And it wasn't until we played, what was it, Grasshoppers, Zurich, that kind of meaningless dead rubber, a few seasons later, that he got his first Champions League group stage goals. But this is more a kind of real art house, low budget. There's a purity to being in the Conference League, our latest group stage, away from the first one where we're all kind of up ourselves and all about the big money. This is about just getting any kind of money. We're owned by glamorous Hollywood type people now, but we want to get into the old Conference League and just keep it real, Rangers. Keep it art house. I'm not saying Czechia. I'm not having that. That's gay, isn't it? Saying Czechia instead of Czech Republic. That was the Rangers review the other day. I was absolutely horrified. Derek Clark was telling us all day we should do national service. What's he fucking do national service? That's why is he? I'm about 25 years old on Derek Clark. I've never in my life said folks should do national service. Why is he? I mean, Neil Warnock, he wants him back to every single job there is as well. In fact, but everyone's is it supposed to be Rangers fans are all reactionary old bigots or something like that? Older than our actual years, but it's not. It's Bohemia and Moravia, as far as they're concerned, in the Rangers review. Czechoslovakia, or it's just woke. Call it Czechoslovakia, or it's totally woke. There's a guy called Jobby Lickers. His handle's Jobby Lickers. That is hilarious, though. We can all agree that's good. The Rangers support wasn't booing Rangers review. Rangers support wasn't. There was boos, okay, at half time last week when we were 0-0 with Jablonec at half time. We did beat them eventually, and we were 10 men eventually, but it was more a kind of, in the Ibrox booometer, I feel as if it was quite far down. It was barely registering, and I think it had a bit of a question mark. It's one of the question mark half-time boos you get, like boo. Are we booing this? Are you booing? I'm not booing it. They're not boo. It didn't really go that far. I was at the final of Euro '96. I've turned this camera. The tickets. I was at the final of Euro '96, and that's the first time I'd ever heard the word Czechia. It was the Czech fans. They were in the final against the Germans. Czechia. Standing in the bit I'd stood in when I went to my first Scotland-England game at Wembley a few years earlier. Oh, quite a lot earlier. But that's what they call it. The Czechs call it. Why are you getting all... You're trying to make out that Rangers fans would find using anything foreign as being too... But you can... Whatever it is you think we are as a support, they can still be that without having to be stupid as well, willfully pig ignorant. No fucking national service. Your desperation to appeal to the widest number of fans sometimes leaves you making the mistake of assuming that the lowest common denominator is the same as the support at large. Sorry? Pardon? Oh no, you also think this. Sorry, Derek's saying that he also does Smack My Bitch Up Prodigy karaoke. So did I. Actually, quite. That's. I thought that was pretty original as well when I was doing it. That's quite cool. And Johnny actually thought that last Thursday was the first signs of what we're expecting to see when Derek McInnes took the job. I think I said that, didn't I, as well, in my post-match reaction. I quite like that. The Rangers review, bang on as far as I'm concerned. The attitudes and their opinions are absolutely spot on. I'll go into my snagging items because it was my last... It's been a long week, folks. You've got to let me have a wee rant and a wee rave. I've got to enjoy myself. It's been a while since I spoke to you. You've had your break, and you will pay the price now. General snagging item. It was a general snag to my last pod, which was the post-match reaction. Outside Ibrox after that 1-0 win over Jablonec. I was very much in that podcast, never mind the quality of the game, feel the history of the moment. I was buzzing after it was the out-and-out European history. It was undeniable that it was your first game, first goal, first win, first red card in the Conference League, even though it's not the Conference League proper now. It was a fourth European competition for Rangers. I knew the game itself had been pretty a grind. Let's just say it was a bit of a grind, but I was genuinely buzzing off the trivia as well as it. It has to be said, just seeing us win a European game because it's been so bad in Europe last season, basically since going out the season before last in the quarterfinals to Athletic Club with heads held high, going to the quarterfinal stage of the Europa League. It's been awful, largely awful, and we've played a lot of games since then, mostly over the course of last season, and just been horrendous in all of them. Europe has been awful. So just to see us win, even though it's a terrible game, or perhaps even the historical aspect is ignominious. If I'm honest about it now, maybe it's just to be in the kind of UEFA third division at all, to be in the Conference League, to be trying to get into the Conference League group stage is our only chance of European football being maintained into September and beyond this season. There's no doubt it was a dour grind of a game, very prosaic opposition, and maybe I was too happy. But I stand by the point that we're yet again observing a rebuild in its early stages. So a first clean sheet and 2 straight wins, that's significant. That is significant. What we achieved last Thursday night. But as I thought back on it the next day, there was none of that. And I go to a big European. You really enjoy a European game in the way that's really going for your soul. And even like beating Panathinaikos in the Champions League qualifying, what was that, second round qualifying last season when Panathinaikos gave us a really hard time, but we managed to beat them 2-0 under the already under pressure at Leicester, Russell Martin. That was the next day, just buzz up. We beat Panathinaikos last night, 2-0. There was none of that with Jablonec. I was still buzzing on the history. Oh, I've got a Conference League. I've been in a Conference League match. But when I thought back, the game itself, it was bad enough, I think, against Jagiellonia, and they had a massive support with them. Jagiellonia, there was a bigger crowd. There was a kind of feeling of, this is bad. This season, to be back in the Conference League qualifiers, the Europa League qualifiers. We had enough of the Europa League last season. We're terrible in it. We don't have the squad to get a bad performance against Dundee United and bad over in Bialystok in the first leg. This last Thursday, it was pretty bad. Major congratulations to everybody who was there, because there was a lot of putting a brave face on it. Last Thursday, it was a kind of cold atmosphere. It did not feel like a real European night, a proper European night. There was something of the friendly about it. Certainly some of after the Lord Mayor's show, but we've not even been to the Lord Mayor's show. It's kind of after the Lord Mayor's show, but you were working at it or something like that. It was, you were having to clean up the horse shit after the Lord Mayor's show. It was not good, I have to be honest, but it really wasn't. Listen, when Llanelli came to play Motherwell in the first Europa League match ever played in Scotland at any stage of the Europa League, and this was just a name change. This is the 4th European competition for Rangers, the Conference League in our history, a 4th completely distinct European competition. The Europa League, just the UEFA Cup, kind of a new livery and edited a bit as a continuation of the Fairs Cup, the UEFA Cup, and then it became the Europa League. But nevertheless, that was a big thing for somebody like me, a name change. It's a Europa League. In the qualifiers, the first one played in Scotland, maybe one of the first ones played in Britain, maybe UK. I think there was one in Northern Ireland, an earlier round. But it was at the Shibre Excelsior Stadium at Airdrie. Motherwell moved it to Airdrie, and I went along. I thought I was going to go, because I wanted to go and see the first ever gameplay, and it was queued round the block. When I just drove along. You couldn't get tickets online at this point because it was 2009, kind of July, August 2009, and it's not a big drive for me to go to the Shibre Excelsior, but the queue to the ticket office was going right around the stadium. There was no way we were going to get in before half time. Never mind, just missed a wee bit of the first half, and I thought, nah, the anal retentive in me was like, no, it's all or nothing. So I didn't bother, drove away. But then, of course, Llanelli beat Motherwell at Airdrie that night, and then Motherwell beat Llanelli in Llanelli. I don't know if it was away goals or it went to penalties or whatever, I can't really remember, but Motherwell went through. And I think Celtic did the same with Moscow Dynamo. They lost at Parkhead, and then they went over. Celtic lost at Parkhead, and then they went over to Moscow, and they beat Moscow Dynamo by more, by a better score in Moscow. And I think that might have been, that was the first time it happened in that particular competition, or maybe the first time it happened for a Scottish club. But Motherwell doing this was quite amazing. And what made it more amazing was that Llanelli were playing at the Parky Scarlets, which was They might share it now, but at that time it was just the Llanelli, the famous rugby side, rugby union side in Llanelli, much bigger concern than than the soccer side. But it meant that both clubs had won their away game, but failed to win at home, and they both played their home game not at their own home. It's quite. This stuff means a lot to me, is what I'm trying to say. I get into this stuff, these things. So to be in the Conference League, just to see it, just to tick it off, was fine, was great for me. But no, I might have taken it a bit too far, and being so buzzing after the game. One thing I definitely got wrong, I think it was Mark gets in touch, a Celtic supporter. He got in touch on Friday, and he was telling me, and I'd mentioned this a few times, and it's a quite an important point. I'd said that Rangers were playing, the Celtic had played in the Conference League before Rangers, so Celtic had played in all 4 European competitions before Rangers. Another boast, because they played in the first season of the Conference League under Ange Postecoglou in 2021-2022, and I thought it was a play-off, the same round that we were playing in last Thursday. They were playing in this Thursday as well, the play-off round, the early play-off round, but it was the round of 32. Celtic, I thought Celtic had just gone through the qualifiers. I knew they'd been in all 3 competitions that season, but I thought they'd gone out with the second qualifying round of the Champions League and gone into the third qualifying round of the Europa League, and then lost that and gone into the playoff round of the Conference League. They played in the group stage of the Europa League. It was the post-group stage. It was the round of 32 that they played Bodo Glimt at that time, who were kind of fairly unknown at Bodo Glimt, and they did Celtic in that one. So I'd made this whole thing, not just the fact that that's statistically wrong, I'd got completely the wrong round, but also because we had other European concerns that season, didn't we? We were getting to the actual final of the Europa League in the same season, but also it's this point I'm trying to make that Rangers might want to go out of Europe in this round. I don't think we want to, but there's certainly some Rangers fans, and it might suit us because if we want to concentrate on domestic thing this season, that's why we got Derek McInnes in. That's the kind of target, that's the plan. Just go for the domestic stuff. We've got to sort it. We've got to stop Celtic winning the league. It might take a few seasons, but we're getting Derek McInnes in to concentrate on that. Maybe not being in Europe's worth, because if we're concentrating on the domestic thing, really, it basically means don't bother with Europe. So the best way to do it maybe is just not be in it at all. Instead of getting humped every midweek. That'd be embarrassing. So I'd made the point, well, Postecoglou, he just proved that he went at the early stages of Europe, he just concentrated domestic stuff, and he managed to win the league with Celtic that season. A few other things went on, but it's not the case. Celtic had also had a group stage campaign. Jacques Favre and John Buchanan. I was mouthing off last Thursday night about the very first guy to score in a European match featuring Rangers' first ever European match. I was talking about all the Rangers' first scorers because Ryan Nadiri's our first ever scorer in the Conference League at any stage of the Conference League, and Max Murray, he'd been our first ever scorer on any European competition match, and that was any European competition match, European competition as we currently know it, club competition. And he scored in the European Cup. The first leg, we went out, of course, over the 2 legs under a play-off to OGC Nice in the second season of the European Cup back in the 50s. But the first goal scored, it was Nice scored in the first goal in the first leg at Ibrox, which we eventually won 2-1. But I couldn't get the guy's name. It was Jacques Favre. His first name, and apologies to John Buchanan. I developed this whole thing. John Buchanan of Hibs, I'm assuming he was called Jock. I can't see him confirming his nickname as being Jock. But John Buchanan of Hibs, he's the first guy to score. Hibs had played in the European Cup the previous season. They weren't league champions. That's another story. Aberdeen were league champions. But they'd played in the very first edition of the European Cup in 55-56, and they had gone to Germany and won 4-0 in the very first match against Rot-Weiss Essen. And the second leg was played at Easter Road, and I'd realised that Eddie Turnbull scored the first goal in Germany, and then Ian Ferguson, when it came to the Champions League, they changed from European Cup to Champions League all those years later. With VfB Stuttgart, the German champions having been eliminated in quite controversial style. Their own fault, though. Legitimate style. From the first edition of the Champions League by Leeds, who we beat in the effective playoff round, it meant that the very first goal scored in the Champions League proper in the European Cup, in the Champions League, was by Ian Ferguson. So that was European Cup and then Champions League. Both the first goals scored in Germany, great footballing nation, on German soil, was scored by Scots. And I thought, wait a minute, the very first night of the Champions League group stages in Scotland. I was at that game against Marseille. Rudy Voller scores the first goal of the game. So the first goal scored in Scotland, Scottish soil, in the Champions League group stage was by a German. Maybe Rottweiss Essen. I know they drew at Easter Road in the second leg. Maybe the first goal was scored by the German guy, and that would make it in both. But no, it's John Buchanan, although Fritz Arbomite did equalise for Rottweiss Essen on the night, but John Buchanan of Hibs scored the very first European Cup goal on British soil, European Cup / Champions League. Yeah, how you doing, folks? This is your Fat Eck. Rangers are one game from qualifying for the UEFA own brand European Club Tournament. Sell-by dates tomorrow, clearance items shelf. Conference League by avoiding defeat in the Czech Republic in our playoff round second leg away to FK Jablonec preview pod, coming to you in association with Jersnet. Check out Jersnet every Friday night 9 p.m, every Sunday night 9:30 p.m, live on the Jersnet YouTube channel. I'm coming to you in association with that, and I'm also sponsored by Dolly Parton. I do a wee song in my pods every night, or every podcast I do. I try to put a wee song in there, kind of early doors, and I can't. There's no way I'm going to attempt any Dolly Parton song. I mean, it'd be too much right now. Absolutely devastated. We should. I mean, 80 years old. It's a good innings, obviously, Dolly. But if somebody deserved to live, look, I know she lost her husband last year, Dolly Parton. But what a woman! What an influence on just good. What a force for good, and that is needed so much in the world these days. If you're on here, you're online. It's unavoidable. If you're watching me on YouTube, it's unavoidable. The bile, the hate, the division, the people stoking stuff up for venal purposes, and Dolly Parton's just the exact opposite. A sex symbol, a musician supreme, a singer supreme, a devastating voice, an amazing voice, and a philanthropist, just an influence like the likes of which the world, as I say, just really needs right now. And there's no way I'll be attempting a Dolly song tonight because I wouldn't be able to get through it. There's Dolly Parton. I've said this before, but Mary J. Blige. I actually love Mary J. Blige, and I couldn't. I've not been able to attempt more than once to do a bit of Mary J. Blige. No, because the whole point of me doing a wee song on these pods is, I mean, I cannot sing. It's the opposite of singing. Whatever the opposite of singing is, I don't mean speaking. I mean, I'm murdering all kind of music that comes tone deaf, and it's awful. And the idea is it's for a wee laugh. To let you know, if you haven't worked it out already, not to take these pods too seriously, even though I do give you my honest opinions. But I don't take myself too seriously, and you shouldn't either. But there's no way I wouldn't do that to Dolly right now. I wouldn't do that to her memory, her legacy right now. When we went, it was my 25th wedding. I've mentioned this before, folks. Sorry to bore you, but it has to get mentioned now. 2 years ago, spring 2024, our wedding anniversary's in the May. But the kind of school holidays, Easter holidays, it was going to be our 25th wedding anniversary. We'd do something special. And as you might have guessed, listening to me, my wife's the more laid back one of the two of us. So I've got a million things that I want to do, places I want to go, things I want to do. My wife's just like, as long as it's interesting, as long as it's good. She's got lots of stuff she wants to do, but she doesn't need to go to these places. I've got to go to Buenos Aires before I die. I've been to New York and I've been to Chicago and done these things. I've got to get to the Conference League final before I die because I've been to the other 3 European finals. All that kind of nonsense. It's that kind of heterosexual idiot bloke type thing, isn't it? Heteronormative garbage, but I can't help it. It's in my system. Because my wife, she wanted to go to St. Petersburg, and she wanted to go to Dollywood. And in St. Petersburg, I just refuse to go because it's Russia, and it's bent as anything. And I'm not taking us over there to get bribed or well, it's not going to happen now anyway. It's things we've been married for 27 years now. But since the start, there's been this thing in St. Petersburg, and I'm going to the Hermitage and all that. I'm like, I just can't. She's not that particularly bothered about it, but the other thing was Dollywood, and probably only because Joe Biden was still in power and before Trump come back. I'm no Dolly Parton obviously became this woman that we all knew has been a kind of, I wouldn't say Mother Teresa because she actually had a really bad reputation in the end up Mother Teresa, but this just, as I keep saying, force for good for the world. She was amazing, but my wife's been to see like the Manics 5 different places. It's not that we're heavily into country music, and I get brought up with a wee bit of country music, always on the go. I love my Johnny Cash and all that, the same as everybody else. But Dolly Parton never really featured. But my wife just her and my sister went to see Dolly Parton when she was at the Armadillo in Glasgow and that, and she always loved her stuff. And I would never personally be like, I'll put on some Dolly, but a lot of the time it's because it's unbearably beautiful. It's piercingly, straightforwardly love when Dolly Parton sings, and it's hard to take sometimes. It's too pure almost for me. So I was worried about this thing going to Dolly, but it was like, well, you get to go to Nashville. Go to Nashville, right? You only go to Dollywood. It's a theme park. There's the Dreammore Resort that's there. You're only going to go there for a few days. How are we going to get there? I'll try to work out planes and all that kind of thing, flights and that. And it's like, end up, we're going to have to drive. We'd drive from Nashville, and we'd go back to Nashville and fly back out of Nashville. I think it's about 10 days all around. And I was like, I get to drive in the States. Now that is an ambition. That is something to hire a car and drive in the US. Enterprise rent a car. I've done a lot of car hire with Enterprise, so I ended up getting a good deal on that over there. That was a great experience. So after we left Dollywood, we're driving through. We drove through the Smoky Mountains, into North Carolina, and we stayed in Chattanooga for a night. We stayed Cherokee in North Carolina, an Indian reservation basically, and it's this massive casino. It was amazing. But my wife was like, it was a bit she had to get to Dollywood. That was, and I thought, well, I can't deny this. It's just no getting St. Petersburg, and we end up playing them in the bloody UEFA Cup final. Zenit St. Petersburg. So we go to Dollywood, and it was phenomenal. The whole thing was one of the greatest experiences of my entire life. But you get to Dollywood, you're thinking, this way, we've travelled all this way just to feel right at home, just to feel the love. I mean, it's a total cash in as well, obviously, but the money's going to good places when it comes to Dolly, and I've never. It was an amazing experience, and she's an amazing person, Dolly Parton, and it absolutely breaks my heart that she's no longer with us. But I know it's a cliche and all that, but she will always be with us. But I've got things I'll watch. Heat, for example, was on Film 4 last Thursday night when we were at the Fitba, and I've been watching it back on my new telly and that, and various classic moments in Heat when he's asking Waingro, just look at me, so he can shoot Wayne, so Waingro can see it coming. It's the best revenge scene probably in the history of cinema when he shoots him twice in the chest and then puts one through his skull. My wife, it's when Kenny Rogers brings Dolly Parton on, they're doing Islands in the Stream. Who's getting the? I mean, what's the nicer choice? What's the more uplifting? What's the more beautiful thing? And it's Dolly every day of the week. So sorry to go on about that, folks, if you're not a fan of Dolly Parton, but if you're not, well, you need to get to know her. It's something else. So Jablonec nad Nisou is the town we're actually going to. FK Jablonec that we're going to play tonight, Thursday night, the second leg. And it's going to be, I don't know if Small's going to be beautiful again, like it was Celtic discovered in that time they were eliminated by Bodo Glimt. So their tiny wee stadium, the Jablonec Stadium, it holds less than 6,000 people. It's 3-sided. There's an open end to it. It's very sports complexy, might have a hedge outside. You never know. It's not big time. They've got a decent record, Jablonec, for the size of them. Very decent. A lot of European representation in the European competitions since the end of the 20th century. They've been doing well over the last basically 30 years in Europe. Just to get into the size of the club they are, and the fact that I've said I did the whole rundown of Czech clubs in Europe in last week's preview pod. If you're so inclined, if you need to check that out again, but they're probably the same size as Bodo Glimt. Even Motherwell and Falkirk have been doing really well in Scotland in the last season, following the kind of small is beautiful brand. So this could be dodgy for us. They weren't very impressive last week, Jablonec, but we did only beat them by a single goal to nil. I think, you get these footballers that go and they get to the end of their career and they go over to the States, maybe play in the States, and then they'll try and get a job at colleges in the States, or training at the soccer programs or whatever, soccer scholarships, or they will open up a school or a training school of their own, a soccer academy over there. I think Kurt Broadfoot has he's done opened a residential course in Jablonec, up in the north of Jablonec, Nad in Nisou, up in the north of Czechia, doing throw-ins. It's a throw-in school, an academy of throw-in. Kurt Broadfoot just twice, 2 foul shies in the semi-final second leg against Fiorentina, twice Conference League finalist Fiorentina, and I've never seen. It's the worst throw-ins I have ever seen in a professional football match. Any football match ever, basically. It was repeated as well. Yeah, but they were just basically bending down and placing the ball on the grass. Unbelievable. And I'm having a go at Big Kirk there, but there was parts of their play that you just thought, this team are rubbish. They had about 4 guys, I said, who were as wide as they were. They were like shot putters, or weightlifters or something like that, or power lifters. They did not look like a particularly good football team, but we only beat them by 1 goal to nil. And just as we're getting into it, of course, Cammy Devlin come on and got himself sent off. I think he was trying to cover, having seen it back a few times, because no one had any idea what was happening at the time. The VAR picked up on it, and VAR had no choice but to pick up on it. Derek McInnes agreed with this as well. But when Derek McInnes is kind of saying, I think, in fairness, he's trying to win, he's trying to dive for a penalty. That's the only cover you can give him, Cammy Devlin. I think he sold the jerseys, and it was pretty awful. He was trying to cover an attempt to brutalise the guy, an attempt to nail the guy with a dive. It was like, no, I'm actually just diving. I'm actually trying to win a penalty. I'm trying to hit this guy. That's what it looked like anyway. When I saw it, it was bad. It was really bad. It's culpable. It's not about VAR. There's just a controversy that was whipped up by a few of the podders I was watching. The podders that are inside the stadium, the guys that are basically, once you're doing stuff with the gantry and all that, that's you're basically. It's no true fan media, is it? You've got your own wee industry going there, and you're thinking about numbers, you're thinking about likes and views, and you're trying to keep folk on side. And I think they were making a big deal about the fact that nobody in the stadium knows. We don't know what's happening, and that is a scandal. That is terrible that we're paying to be at this game, and anybody who's watching it on television can see the replays usually of the incident and what's been looked at, but we don't know. And that's something that should maybe be sorted. But I think that was a distraction from the fact that Cammy Devlin just got himself sent off and put us under real pressure and stopped us at a time where we looked like we were about to go and score a few more goals, just so we were getting into it. The lack of tempo, that's a yeah. As I say, it's been put on Dan Neil. People are blaming it primarily on Dan Neil, who's playing 6 last week. He's going sideways with his passes and that. Well, it was a good thing in Rangers Review. I have to credit where it's due. And I really like Rangers Review. I'm only joking with the wind-up stuff. Joshua Barry on I think it was a Friday or the Saturday, I remember the Friday, the day after the game, talking about the fact that Dan Neil got hung out to dry for pushing too far forward in Bialystok against Jagiellonia in the Europa League, in our previous European tie this season. And he's right. Remember that at the time, he's pushing up too far and he's trying to be 1-2s and things at the edge of their box, and next thing they're breaking on us. And he was, Nico Raskin, we're forgetting that Nico Raskin was in for the St Mirren game. We beat St Mirren 5-1. We got a bit of momentum going from that, a few goals scored, everything. We're quite enjoying ourselves against St Mirren, and then a few days later, bang, Raskin. Was it an ankle injury? I don't know. Anyway, it sounds like he's on his way. He's not travelled for the second leg amid interest from other clubs. But Nico Raskin suddenly withdrawn. Dan Neil's left there, and we've got a set up where we've got the 2 8s are playing in front of him. It's almost like a little V shape we've got going there. So if he loses the ball, there's no. I think Joshua Barry was pointing this out in Rangers Review. Of course, you get the defence behind him, but Daniel couldn't afford to be too risky. He couldn't afford to be, hitting the ball left, right, or pushing too far forwards. I get the idea of him being a bit cautious, and that's what we're expecting from a Derek McInnes side at this stage of the season. How you doing, folks? My name's Alec Anderson. What would you do if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song. I'll try not to sing out of key. Oh, baby, I get by with a little help from my friends. Oh, goodbye with a little help from my friends. Let's be friendly. Let's keep behind Rangers just now when they're kind of transitioning and maybe starting to get a bit of shape about them, a bit of momentum. I feel as if it was very much like the Alaskirk game from, was that 5 years ago, when we dropped out of the Champions League. We lost to Malmo. We drop into the playoff round of the Europa League. I'm like, it'd been good to us already at that point in the Europa League under Steven Gerrard, but it's like, this is just not. And we beat Alaskirk 1-0 at home. But John Lundstrom gets sent off. Stupid. It was a lack of concentration with Lundstrom, and he decided to rectify it by bringing the guy down, and he gets sent off, and Alfredo Morelos scores a goal. I think after we're down to 10 men, Alfie scores the only goal of the game at Ibrox that night. But it felt very much like that. We've won, but so many things were wrong, and it's just, what's the point of anything? Everything's going badly, and we end up getting to the final. So let's not write in and off just now. I'm not going to hang Cammy Devlin out to dry completely. I think he just hung us out to dry last week, I think. But Derek McInnes, post-match of that game last Thursday, was saying we looked a bit young. So he's then going out this week, and he's trying to sign a 20-year-old and a 22-year-old. That's really going to. I mean, one thing, he's Korean, and somebody might actually call it young. He's just went the full kind of sick length of rubbing that in our face. But his main line there, I'm only joking. His main line there was that we need to manage the game better. He said himself that our tempo wasn't as good as it could have been. We're too slow in the first half. We actually created quite a few chances in the first half, 3-4 good chances, hit the post and all that. But tempo poor, just as we looked like we could add to our lead, said Derek McInnes in his post-match last Thursday, we mucked it up at the back, and this is something I'd pointed out as well. I'd noticed that we have this we put 5 past St Mirren. Well, we lost a goal after the second goal we scored that day. We conceded the goal straight away. And it was with the same player who'd just scored, Dragojevic, who'd scored the beautiful second goal. He then gives it away to make it 2-1. And we did it a few times in that game, giving away chances as soon as we'd actually scored. We did it last week. And of course, 50 minutes after we've taken the lead and we've got a bit of momentum going, we go down to 10 men. So that was his main problem with it as well. We need to bring a big performance, he's saying, today. In Poland, I'm talking to you on Wednesday night, his pre-match presser for the second leg, he said we need to bring a big performance to ensure that we win, because if we go out there and try to get a 0-0, we try to just see the game out as a draw or something like that, or try to hit them in the break, it's not going to be good enough. We kind of just sit in there and just try to administer the result. We're not that good anyway. We're not that good a team. He says we're just asking for trouble. He thinks that if you're going to progress in Europe, you have to play well in both legs. And knockout European football, obviously. So, yeah, he's well aware of what the problems are, and he's well aware of what we need to do. Derek McInnes. Sky Sports at lunchtime today revealed that we had a £9.2 million bid in that's been accepted. The fee has been agreed. I think that's the currency exchange rate. It's a certain $12.5 million or something like that. It was the fee US dollars that is wanted by Portland Timbers in the Western Conference of the MLS. We had Kevin Keegan passing away the other week. We had big Kevin Kyle, of course. Will we ever see his like again playing up front for Rangers? Kevin Kelsy, we're going for another KK. Kevin Kelsy of Valencia in Venezuela. He's played at Shakhtar Donetsk. He's only 22 years old. He's played at Shakhtar Donetsk, who are a good school. They're a very good school. But of course, Venezuela is the only country in South America where soccer is not the national sport. It's baseball. So he ends up going to the MLS, doesn't he? Via Cincinnati FC. He's ended up at Portland Timbers. I think he's only scored something like just over a dozen league goals and the regular season goals in the MLS over the last couple of seasons. They're 3/4 of the way through the current season, I think. They're a kind of mid-table, just into the top half. Portland Timbers, I think they're a wild card place they got last season, and they're running about 9th or something in the Western Conference this season at this point in the season. So they're they're not a powerhouse. Portland Timbers, so maybe it's harder to score goals. So he's done well to get that number of goals, but he seems to be a real talent. We've heard about this one for a while. He seems to be wanted as Kevin Kelsy. He's played half a dozen times for Venezuela. Venezuelan full team, not got a goal for them. But again, Venezuela have never qualified for the World Cup. They've hosted the Copa America, but they've never qualified for the World Cup. I said Portland's. It's difficult to judge if his goal scoring rate is a concern. We're hoping it's going to be Alfredo Morelos Smart too. Big guy, physical, and a leader of the line. It's the ongoing bid to try and replace the Terminator with big Youssef Chermiti being out for the rest of the season. But that fee has been agreed, so that's one. It's that the manager wouldn't confirm today in his presser in Poland if it was over the line or not, but he confirmed that we're definitely trying to get a few bodies in this week. A few deals are coming close. He confirmed we're definitely pursuing Kim Min-soo, 10 million euros from Girona. That triggledy-piggled their release clause there, and apparently Girona are unhappy that Rangers have come in and paid the 10 million euros that will trigger the release clause there. I think that ends up working out about 8.5 million or 9 million pound sterling, which means he's a bit more expensive. I think it's significantly more expensive than Driesch from PSV, that move that fell through. He's a left winger. This is us trying to get ourselves built up on the wings. He's a left winger. He's just going to arrive the whole world of he better be good, because 20 years old. He's been in, it was again Rangers Review. I have to keep naming my sources. I can't just make it up. I know this stuff off the top of my head. Rangers Review had a chap on there, a Korean football expert who was in the States, and he said, and I checked up on Wikipedia as well, he's actually been in Spain since he was 10. He's been there for half his life, so it's not like we're getting somebody who's coming from the K-League, the Asian football scene, is going to have to adapt to things in Europe. He's been at Spain for half of his life. He went to clubs in Catalonia when he was a kid, and he's ended up. He's played mostly Segunda Division, like the second tier in Spain. He's played for the Girona B team, and he's played for FC Andorra. He was out on loan at them. I think he's played like 5 games for the Girona full team, 5 La Liga matches. I don't think he's scored for them at all. But he's been in Spain since he was a kid. So European football is in his veins. Left wing, it's a left wing he's going to play on if he comes in. Again, Derek McInnes would not confirm that they would sign him. He couldn't say anything because we haven't signed him as yet, but he basically said, yeah, we're trying really hard to get it over the line. None of these guys could play in this game anyway. They're not in the European squad, so it doesn't really matter when they arrive, although there's a lot of talk about could they play on Sunday against Aberdeen, but I'm not bothering with that just now. Apparently 3 Italian clubs, Monza, Lecce and Parma, again this is according to Chris Jack of Rangers Review, have been in for JD Gassama. I think he's knocked back Monza twice, and the rumour there is that the bid is 10 million euros, so that straight away that pay for Kim Min-soo. And Chris Jack was in Rangers Review today that thinks Monaco had come in January with the 10 million. There was talk about him going somewhere in January. They'd come in with a 10 million euro bid then for him. So that seems to be the asking price for JD Gassama. I've been to Monza. I get driven to Monza, and of all the places to get driven to Monza, but he took me to this, drove past the stadium. You couldn't get in the football stadium by an Atalanta fan. I was over there in 1999. But it's Monza. Apparently, twice they've been knocked back by Rangers for Gassama. They just come up from Serie B last season. They won the playoff, the promotion playoff, to get back into Serie A. Did Monza. The manager said knew nothing about it. They offered Sir JD Gassama in his presser today in Poland, but it was more than a kind of, I've been training the team. You know, it doesn't mean to say it's not happening. It wasn't like, I know nothing about this. It's all bullshit. It's all rumours. It was, yeah, that sounds about right. Like you could be telling me somebody's in for JD Gassama. I'll hear about it once I've got this game out the way. I'll have a wee sit down with the recruitment team. I wouldn't want Gassama to go. I think we need to have. I was saying this last week. I think Gassama and Yokota should be your second choice wingers. And we want a season where we're playing European group stage football and we're trying to seriously go for it domestically. I want to have a squad where you can have 2 decent backups, and then you're hoping that for that kind of money, Kim Min-soo is going to be your first choice outside left, and we're going to get somebody else in on the right hand side. the manager said he wants more forward players. But we'll wait and see what happens with that one. I mean, I think Gas is definitely coming into a game. I'm not saying fantastically original there, but he's definitely improved when he's just been allowed to play left wing. He's not getting switched about. He's just been allowed to play left wing. We've also got Finlay Curtis, of course, who just comes in off the left brilliantly. That's what he should be. Finlay Curtis, he's against Curaçao and a friendly for Scotland. I watched him coming off the left scoring for Kilmarnock against St Mirren at Paisley. You know, he comes in, he scored. And the second time he scored against St Mirren at Paisley, into that same end, into the away end that season, he scored there for us. In between the last season's European Play-Off first and second legs against Bruges, did he come off the left for that one? But he was an equaliser. It was one. The goal he scores against Panathinaikos last season, that must have been coming in off the left. The goal he scored against Middlesbrough in a pre-season. He's just brilliant when he comes in off the left. Finlay Curtis. So maybe we've got him as an option, and we should let Gassama go if the money's good enough. Depends what Gas wants to do as well. So we don't think the Conference League will be anything like as glorious to be in as the Europa League after we reached the final in Seville. Remember we reached the final in Seville in 2022. But look at the short history so far of the Conference League. Roma won it in 2022. They won the first ever Conference League. Jose Mourinho, and he's got a tattoo of all the European trophies. I don't know if he's got the Cup Winners' Cup on there because he was part of the Barcelona coaching team under Bobby Robson, the translator. But he should have that. The old Cup Winners' Cup. He's got the Champions League. He's got Europa League. I think they got the tattoo touched up. Didn't he? You got Europa League and the Champions League trophies. But I think he got the Conference League trophy added to that. Did Jose? In the following season, he lost the Europa League final to Sevilla. That's Roma won the Conference League. You go straight into the Europa League group stages the following season if you win the Conference League. And in 2023, Jose, with Roma, still lost the Europa League final to Sevilla. 2023, Davy Moyes won it. He was West Ham manager. He used to play for Celtic. He played against Rangers, I think, maybe 79, 80 or something. Young Davy Moyes playing for Celtic there. And Celtic who lost the UEFA Cup final in 2003 in Seville. In Sevilla, you've got Jose Luis Mendilibar. He was the Olympiacos manager when they won the Conference League in 2024, became the third club to win the Conference League in its third season. The previous season, he was the Sevilla manager, Jose Luis Mendilibar, when they beat Jose Mourinho's Roma in the Europa League final in Budapest on penalties. But that's good. And then in 2025, Enzo Maresca, you've heard of him, he's now Man City manager. He was Chelsea manager when they beat Real Betis in the Conference League final. Enzo Maresca, who as a player scored 2 goals in the 2006 UEFA Cup final, won 4-0 against Middlesbrough in Eindhoven by Sevilla. And then he's Chelsea manager. At this point, Sevilla went on to win 7 Europa Leagues. That was the first time they won the UEFA Cup / it's the same trophy, the UEFA Cup / Europa League. I was at Hampden when they retained it in 2006. In 2007. They won it. That was the first ever European final 20 years ago in Eindhoven. It's in the Europa League. Only competition they've ever got to the final of, but it's like Milan have won the European Cup / Champions League 7 times. After that, the only team who's won anything more is Real Madrid in the Champions League. It's quite incredible what Sevilla did in the Europa League. But Enzo Maresca, who set, it's one of the biggest derbies in the world, the Seville derby between Sevilla and Real Betis. So this is Real Betis' first European final, and they're playing against Chelsea. They've had to sit in a city with Sevilla rubbing 7 Europa Leagues in their faces. It's just the Conference League final they're in. It's not as good as Europa League, but they've got a chance to get their name on the board, and they're 1-0 up at half time, and they get gubbed. It's by Enzo Maresca, who's done. It's just a nightmare for them. He's Sevilla through and through is Enzo Maresca, and he wins the 4th Conference League. The 5th one was won back in May, or was it June this year, by Oliver Glasner. Crystal Palace won the 2026 Conference League, and of course we know Oliver Glasner had also won the Europa League by beating us in the Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan in 2022 in that final in Sevilla, in Sevilla's ground. Yet the only manager to reach the final of the Conference League more than once in its short history is Vincenzo Italiano, who reached the final with Fiorentina twice. They've reached 2 straight finals, Fiorentina. They lost the 2nd and 3rd Conference League finals. Never won it. As Vincenzo Italiano, he's currently the manager of Besiktas, who are hosting this season's, provisionally, they are hosting this season's Conference League final after hosting last season's Europa League final, Besiktas, which was won by Aston Villa, managed by Unai Emery, who was winning it for the 5th time as a manager. Unai Emery winning the Europa League for the 5th time as a manager in his 6th Europa League final, 3 of which he won as manager of Sevilla. Unai Emery's won it 5 times, the Europa League, with 3 different clubs. But of course, he lost the 2019 final as Arsenal manager to Chelsea, got gubbed by Chelsea in Baku. What was the problem there? Well, when you look at, and I mean, you read the names of the 3 clubs that he has won it with, the Europa League, Unai Emery, all becomes clear. Sevilla, Villarreal, Aston Villa. It's 3 clubs with Villa in their name. It's quite incredible. Arsenal don't have Villa in their name, so of course he could only take them so far. Just like when he was Paris Saint-Germain manager, he never got Paris Saint-Germain to any proper European finals. So I just wonder if Derek McInnes, unable to win a European trophy so far as manager of Hearts, Kilmarnock, Aberdeen, Bristol City and St Johnstone of Perth, will finally have his UEFA moment as manager of Rangers in the Conference League. I think there's definitely a theme going on there. Probably not, but I'd like to get to the group stages. Losing this tie to Jablonec would be a bit of a beamer. I'm hearing Celtic have had a bad result in Europe on Tuesday night, apparently. I can't do the Schadenfreude thing until we get through versus Jablonec. Is it more of a slagging? Is it more of a slagging just the fact that we're in this situation? We've dropped into the Conference League, the 3rd division of European football. Just to be playing Conference League football, is that worse than what happened to Celtic in Europe on Tuesday night? But what we do know is this is as perfect a situation as we could possibly have hoped for our season. As we could have hoped for after we dropped out of the Europa League, after we failed to get through, to get past Jagiellonia, Bialystok, talking of kind of letters and all that kind of stuff. Bialystok, Bruges, Budapest, Bergen. It's been bad. It's been bad away from home in Europe in the beats. Thank God we're going to Jablonec, just a bit further up. The last European away win we had was in Istanbul, but it's I. So we've got a place beginning with Jai now. Hopefully that's closely related enough, because it's not to do with the quality of the football and like that. It's not to do with these wee coincidences. Celtic dropping into the Europa League group stage. It means they play on a Thursday night like us, so they've not got this advantage of playing on a Saturday. We thought we were going to be in we thought they were going to be in the Champions League, probably taking a doing, but getting tens of millions of pounds more than us. But it's kind of perfect because, in terms of how much it will tax how much it will tax them physically, you probably got about the same. They're still going to play in 8 games in the group stage, whereas if we get into the Conference League group stage, there's only 6 games in that. They play on a Thursday night, same as there's none of this playing on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night in the Champions League, so they can play on a Saturday. Or even if we've got to play on a Sunday in a derby, they've got more rest in the legs than we have. They're not getting to play on a Saturday before us in the league and get 3 points on board and have us constantly on the back foot. No, none of that is going on. They're playing the same night as us. They're playing a higher class of opposition to us still. So they're going to be more drained. The Conference League will not have the same kind of level of opposition, or the density of it anyway. There's far less money than the Champions League. The gap between the Europa League and the Conference League isn't as pronounced, isn't as dramatic. So there's not going to be this kind of legacy thing. They're going to get ahead of us. We would hope the 49ers would make up a difference, but it's a much smaller difference to make up now. Anyway, the downsides, they're not going to get 6 and 7 put past them as they would in the Champions League. I mean, we know the same would happen to us if we qualify for the Champions League just now. It might happen to us if we get the ranked team. There's a few big hitters or from big hitter leagues in the Conference League group stage even. The other down, so they're not going to get 6 and 7 put past them, which would really be a bit embarrassing for them, but that's something we always like to see. I mean, it know what happened to us. We get put 6 past us by Bruges. I'm not trying to, this is just the way of the world. I'm not trying to, say that it's no happened to us, or you're right to slag each other. It's just it's the name of the game. But it could have a really negative effect on Celtic if they're taking doings. It didn't have a negative effect on them when they were in 9 in a row. Really, they still managed to carry on through despite Champions League doings and win the league title. But at this point in time, it could have been worse for them, being in the Champions League group stage. But they handled it quite well a few seasons ago. But the other downside is Martin O'Neill could win the Europa League. You know, I think there's more chance of Martin O'Neill just packing it in shortly, citing whatever illness that was that affected him very recently. But there's still that thing of we want to go ahead domestically. Alec McLeish, 2003, we win the treble. Celtic get to a European final though and decide, as I've always warned you, that suddenly European football is the only thing that counts, despite us having been far superior in Europe. The old time they were winning the league title 9 in a row or 14 times out of the last 15, and we were constantly getting told that it was winning the league title that was the main thing. But Martin O'Neill, he actually cited it today or yesterday. I saw it on Sky Sports News today, his post-match press conference, a little clip of it saying the 5-1 tanking off Lask was his worst result in Europe since losing the 2003 UEFA Cup final. I don't know if it's a sly way of Martin mentioning I've managed teams to European finals, or it was a different kind of disappointment altogether almost, because Celtic took that one all the way. They took that well, they didn't take it all the way. B took our final in Seville all the way, but they took it to extra time. We took us to penalties. But it's that kind of mindset proving why it would be a massive blow for me if Martin O'Neill decides to go for it in the Europa League. You never know. He got a bit of respect back to Celtic in Europe last season. He's got a full season at it now, point to prove. You never know. An outside chance that they could end up getting to the final. And it'd be a kind of tit for tat thing now. Celtic and Rangers have both reached 2 European finals each in the 21st century. So I don't know. That's maybe not a strong chance they can do that, but I think there's an outside chance. So that's the kind of downsides, but there's more upsides to it for us. I think they'll play more group games than we will, because there's only 6 games. If we get in, if we have to play any European group games, we can still go to Jablonec. Very, very realistic that we will. A huge blow to the pride. This is the biggest advantage to us. It's a huge blow to the pride and the kind of fragile harmony of our main opponents for the league title, which we hope they will. I mean, if Hearts and Hibs qualify for the Conference League, even if we don't, then Celtic definitely will be our main opponents for the league title, because it will decimate what Hearts and Hibs are able to do in the league. But we're not sure that we will be Celtic's main challengers for the title this season, if we will challenge them at all. But their fans are going nuts about it right now. They're going absolutely mental. I don't know how much. I did do the dirty and listen to a wee bit of a Celtic State of Mind. I couldn't help it. I've never understood why people want to get in touch. That's what it is. It used to be. I was like, why do folk want to watch my podcast if you support another team? No, but what I can't understand is why you want to get in touch and have an argument with me about something I've said, because you don't have any rights. If you want to just get in touch and say how you doing, Alec, Celtic fan, blah blah blah, let's just shoot the general shit. But if folk get in touch, actually, I don't think that's true. Of course, it's not true. I'm a fucking Rangers supporter. I'm talking to other Rangers supporters. I'm not going to get in touch with anybody on a Celtic State of Mind, but I couldn't help watching that wee bit of it last night. And some fairly sensible boys in that, but they seem to be, they're not happy. And you see a few things on social media that they're very not happy. They haven't been happy with their board for a while. So they're kind of ready to crack. I think Celtic, it's almost like winning the league all the time. It's just made them really, really hard to please. So it more than evens out what we did versus Jagiellonia. That's unfair, unfair as it may be, to lose from such a winning position. To get put out of the Champions League and end up in the Europa League group stages shouldn't be as embarrassing as getting put out of the Europa League and end up in the Conference League groups. But it was the way it happened to be 4-0 up with an hour left in the tie, and to throw. I was quite. I didn't know until I just checked my phone, thinking I wonder how many. I just assumed Celtic were through. I'd only just realised they were playing. I was watching something else last night, and I checked my phone expecting just to see what the full-time result was, and it was like Celtic trying to get back into the game or something like that in extra time. Like, what? And I saw the score, and you're like, Jesus Christ! And I just put it on just as the BBC updated it. It was on my phone. It said Lask had missed a penalty, and I thought, oh, that's it. What in the name of Wittgenstein's and Hitler's school would? There's no way they're going to do that. That's it. They'll score a goal, and Celtic right at death, and they'll win the thing on penalties. I wish no bother getting involved, but it didn't happen. But we could try to emulate. We could certainly try to emulate. I think just the situation that we're in, and it's a higher profile game. The humiliation for them is greater until we are 3-0 up against Jablonec on the night at half time and still get put out But we could certainly try our best to outdo Celtic. I doubt it'll be as memorable if Rangers go out tomorrow night. And I think no Europe at all for Rangers is so kind of closely related to playing in the Conference League. The atmosphere, the lack of atmosphere at Ibrox last Thursday, it's no very different to having no Europe at all, I think. It's a kind of Anglo-Scottish Cup of European competition, the Conference League. So I think it's so closely related to having no Europe at all, playing the Conference League, that from a prestige point of view, that Celtic, the fact that Celtic are unable to make seismically more money than us this season, just the kind of pressure's generally off us going into this game. But be under no illusions, it would be absolutely humiliating for Rangers to get put. Celtic might have taken a bit of pressure off us. It would still be, most people across Europe will be talking about the Celtic's elimination just because they were 4-0 up with an hour to go, but also because it is the Champions League. Sometimes it's where you're failing is as much a sign of how you're doing generally as where you're winning. The manager, Derek McInnes, in Poland on Wednesday nights before the game, was talking about not just the financial benefit of European football. He's making it very clear, as if there is doubts out there, as if some people are kind of thinking that do we really need European football? But it's not just the financial benefit of European football for Rangers. It'd be European football till Christmas because there's two fewer games. In the Conference League group stages, you don't play the 2 January games in that competition. But he says it's about prestige. Not just the financial benefit of European football, it's the prestige. That's what this is all about. I'd say the latter is now the most relevant factor. You know, the financial gain. Now that Celtic are in the Europa League as opposed to the Champions League, they're not going to make fiercely more money than us. I think the financial aspect comes from being able to maintain a certain level of prestige, a certain presence. You know, you're maybe not a force in Europe. You couldn't call yourselves a force in Europe. We couldn't anymore. We maybe have been in the Europa League of late, but investors and players and their agents throughout the world will just notice it's like an ongoing advert for yourself. When we reach the Europa League final and then the quarters again 3 seasons later, it's the whole, you know, there's so much football on television these days and that, and it gets noticed. Your name's out there all the time. You become known. Oh, Rangers are interested in you, says an agent to his player. Oh, aye, them that do well in various European competitions of late. Well, not a blast from the past or anything. It keeps it just keeps you a certain presence here. Now, don't get me wrong. The scenario we face if we do get into the group stages of the Conference League, the scenario we face on Thursday, a kind of unheralded club in a small stadium in a town very few of us have heard of. It's a scenario we're going to face throughout the group stages if we get into it. And if we're lucky enough to get into the knockout rounds of the Conference League, it would go on for a few of the knockout rounds as well. It's no about augmenting or embellishing our European reputation or Europa League legacy of the 2020s getting into the Conference League group stage. It's more just a bit kind of maintaining it, just kind of keeping the advert going, getting repeated late on night television. It's a bit no embarrassing. Try and not embarrass our European legacy of the 2020s. Get ourselves into this group stage, Rangers. My starting 11, my team selections, at both sides. Jablonec had a free weekend as well as ourselves. I think they were supposed to be playing Banica Strava, but they've not played in the league football at all. They've not played. They did free weekends around their last European tie against RFS as well in the previous round. So I think we needed it. There's an argument at this stage of the season that you should be playing midweek and weekend because you're trying to build up sharpness. And we've got so many new signings. You're trying to get them all to, get to know each other, trying to gel together, need to build up a familiarity. I don't know. Derek McInnes himself, having watched this, I'm not sure that that's the case. And Derek McInnes himself said we're picking up a few injuries like Ben Godfrey and what have you, because we're playing too many high pressure games too quick. The schedule is too much too soon, too early, too early. You can straight into massive league game, massive European game, massive league game, massive European game, weekend, midweek, and you're getting more injuries and what have you. So I think it's good that we've had the week off to avoid more injuries, apart from anything else at this stage of the season, but it's still pre-season, it's still kind of kicking into the players' legs. I don't know how that will work out for Jablonec, if it's going to make them fresher or whatever. Dujon Sterling, I mean, in the squad, the squad news, of course, and what I didn't mention previously is that Nico Raskin did not travel because he is wanted. I did mention it earlier, but the Fenerbahce is the rumour doing the rounds. They're supposed to be in for him, but I think there's a few Italian clubs. There's been interest from Spain as well. Was it his ankle? Was it his ankle last Thursday? Or this stuff started last Thursday? His head's in other places. His agent's got his head in other places. We're expecting him to go, Nico Raskin, but it will be a massive loss. In this tie, basically didn't play in the first leg either, so he didn't travel with the squad, so he's not going to be playing. Ben Godfrey is in the squad, so he's coming back from injury. Is it enough, though? Is he fit enough to play in the game? Dujon Sterling, I mean, Aberdeen on Sunday is a factor in terms of fitness, what have you, but I think we kind of let Aberdeen on Sunday be. We need this. We need to concentrate in this tie, really. And it's not just fitness. It's if any of the players are involved in negotiating their exit, the JD Gassama, how interested is he in going to Serie A? Whatever, is he wanting to move? Is he quite happy at Rangers? Is he upset that we're bringing in another winger that maybe take his place? There's various things going on. I hope the manager has sussed out. But I mean, Dujon Sterling's had a week off, so he's not the automatic benching that some think he should be because he's got ongoing injury problems. He's frequently picking up injuries. Dujon Sterling, if Godfrey's not quite there yet in fitness terms, I think a lot of people would be thinking Dujon Sterling should go in and replace Manny Fernandez, which a lot of people are unhappy with the way Manny Fernandez has started the season. And I mean, he's made a lot of mistakes at centre half, the big man. I'm not really up for that. I think Fernandez still offers a hell of a lot in terms of his physicality. And again, Joshua Barry said this on Rangers Review. I'm a total fanboy. I'm aware he said it because every time I think that as well. His distribution, the way he brings the ball out and the way he hits long balls, passes the ball quite accurately, that's a factor that's kind of forgotten when he's making massive ricks at the back. But I don't want any more messing about with the centre half partnership. We've had Fernandez and Macania playing well. If Macania's getting man of the match last Thursday night, it's not Manny Fernandez is helping with that. He's not a bad influence on that. It's part of the deal. Your centre half partner. If the centre half start getting man of the match awards, I think we don't want to mess about with that unless Manny Fernandez has genuinely got offers from Germany or whatever, and he's wanting to go somewhere else. But I think we need to get ourselves out onto the park and get settled early. You're away from home. Hopefully, Jablonec. So what I'm trying to say is you should pretend we don't have a squad that's in total flux. That's why last Thursday I was wanting to see as much of the team that had played against St Mirren, a 5-1 win, our first win of the season, get as many of them back in the starting 11 for the following Thursday. It worked after a fashion. Let's try it again this week. I'm trying to say that I would go for the same starting 11 as last week, with perhaps having Nedeljkovic in for Dujon Sterling. And I don't want to drop Dujon Sterling. I think he's great as well, and he might be the kind of the vocal kind of leader. He's brilliant, Dujon Sterling. Maybe he's the kind of guy we need to have on the pitch. Maybe he'll change the formation. I'm assuming he's just going to do 4-3-3. The 4-3-3 has worked the last couple of games. Derek McInnes in the spirit of trying to get some continuity about us. Just go with that same formation, and I would have Pandor in goals. I would go with Dujon Sterling at right back, let Nedeljkovic do a bit more acclimatising. Maybe he'll play him somewhere else. Maybe you could have him a wide right, a defensive way or something, or a shove in the midfield. Who knows? But I think it's going to be Pandor in goals, Dujon Sterling at right back, James Penrice at left back. I'm going to have Fernandez and Macania again as the centre halves. I'm going to have Dan Neil sitting in there, and it will be. I can't help but want his physicality, his mobile and defensive oriented, or defensive capabilities from Chukwani. I will have him in there, as well as Uncle Vanya Dragojevic. That's your 2 8s there, but I think this time the 8's only going to be as far advanced. We're going to get a bit more of a line going in the midfield 3, and up front with Ryan Nadiri. He scored 2 and 2. He scored the first goal, and there's only one goal last week, in our last 2 games, our only wins of the season. Big man's doing the business, Ryan Nadiri. He's really underrated. have him leading the line, and I'd have Gassama, as long as everything's all right in his head. I'd have him on the left-hand side. If not, I'd go Finlay Curtis, and on the right-hand side, Yokota again. So I'm basically going with the same starting 11 as last Thursday, but it depends. There's so many different factors, particularly at this time the transfer window is open. There's so much movement in our squad, in our roster. Also, I say Nedeljkovic coming for Dujon Sterling. Perhaps maybe Dujon Sterling would go in for Fernandes. I don't think so. Same starting 11 for me. I would have had Nico Raskin in there instead of Dan Neil, but no, that's not going to happen now. Jablonec Nad Nisou. It's the town. It's smaller than Livingston, less a population than Livingston, and it's the same kind of stadium as Livingston had before they finished. I remember being at Almondvale when it was in the Championship, just to go there, get it off the list. I went to see them play St Mirren in the Championship, Almondvale, and there was one end completely missing. And I thought this would be nice when it's finished. And it does look nice, Almondvale. It's very, very uniform. When it's finished, it's just you can't see in from any of the stands because they're so close to the ground. Even the back row, it seems it's kind of pitch level, but they've got that thing. It's a kind of the stadium holds just under 6,000. The Stadion Strelnice in Jablonec Nad Nisou. There's about 600 bears going. Hopefully they'll make more noise than anybody else. A three-sided stadium. It's an athletic stadium that's had one stand built square on the pitch at one end, and you can still see the track. I mean, this is the pictures I've seen of it recently. Anyway, this could be complete nonsense. They might have built a new stand there altogether, maybe a four-sided stadium, but one end's completely open, kind of grassed over, a bit of hard standing, but it's basically the kind of D shape that you get between the track, the curve of an athletics track, and the straight line of the touch line, the goal line. So it's a three-sided stadium. It's quite weird. I'm hoping I think there's less chance of it being a totally intimidating atmosphere for Rangers than it's going to be. The problem could be that it's more of a kind of pre-season friendly atmosphere. It might be a bit disconcertingly low-key as far as maybe Jablonec, FK Jablonec have got a hell of a reputation. Maybe they're the Millwall or something like that of the Czech Republic, and there'll be fireworks going from the end. It's not got any stands on it, and the other three stands will be packed. This is a massive moment for them, and it'll be super intimidating. I don't anticipate that. I think it's got. I think we just might be kind of up against it in terms of there's still going to be a bit of shock, culture shock, maybe playing in this stadium, but there shouldn't be. We've got so many new players, you see, but a lot of us Scottish-based players that have played in the SPFL, we're used to this kind of stadium, and stuff this Aberdeen on Sunday, chat that we're getting from some of the hacks today at the presser, even about our two latest kind of signing targets. Are they going to play in Sunday or whatever? The humiliation if we go out on Thursday, if we go out on this tie against Jablonec, is I won't really care about Pataudry at that point in time, and the relief we'll get if we go through. There'll be a massive feeling of relief if we can just get in the Conference League group stage football, get European group stage football. And the boost it would provide to the whole Derek McInnes project, the whole 49ers project, if we could win. With a bit of style or win with a bit of ease, do it kind of professionally. Even a 2-0 win would be absolutely lovely. It'd be, it's great, scored in the first half, scored in the second half. Job well done. We're through, never really under pressure, and that'd be really, really nice. I just hope they don't take too much encouragement, Jablonec, from having so much of the ball in the last. I know that they're playing against 10 men for the last 20 minutes last week, but they'll have had a feel for us. They'll think they can get through. Stuff like that can make a psychological difference. They've got us at home now, so I just hope they don't take too much confidence from the last 20 minutes of that game last week, even though we dealt with them quite easily on the night. But so would it be? It'd be nice to go through by a couple of goals. It'd be nice to do it really. My score prediction is going to be 0-0, and it's going to be an absolute nightmare. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. As per Armenia in 2021-2022, playing Alashkert. I think it's going to be a horrible night. But Jablonec will probably have a man sent off. Remember, Alashkert got the man sent off. This is Alashkert, kind of scaled down a level all over again. This is playing Jablonec. We've dropped out of a tournament that we thought we were going to be in. We're kind of, turning our nose up at the tournament that we are in, and the first leg we won it at Ibrox with a man sent off, and he shouldn't have been sent off. He feels as if he kind of sold the jerseys, and it was a long, painful night in Armenia. But I think that means that Cammy Devlin will then be the guy who puts us 3-0 up at Brighton in the playoff rounds, and maybe scores the winner against, let's see, Freiburg in the semi-final. Ibrox, the second leg of the semi-final, who scored the winner against Cammy Devlin's destined to follow in John Lundstrom's footsteps. That's the story I'm going for now. The parallels are all there. They would be dropped out of the Champions League and Europa League qualifiers back in 2021-22. If you think 0-0 in Rangers, it's just been an absolute grind of a game, and Rangers going to Pittodrie on Sunday with their supporters still giving, I don't know. I don't know about this team. Then I think it's a bit negative of me. Well, it's positively giddy with jollity compared to the other scenario that I'm thinking about just now as well, which is Progress Niederkorn. Not that we played them with Steven Gerrard in charge. Progress Niederkorn under Pedro Caixinha. I'm thinking the hedge. There's a very kind of sports complex look about the Jablonec stadium, the Stadion Strelnice. I'm sure in that one open end they've probably got a wee hedge or a wee bush or something in there, and I can imagine Deeks Dell in there at the end just giving it. No, but I'll go at least when we played Alashkert, it was the national stadium in Armenia, Yerevan, is it? And we were. It was a bit more high class, and we got through that one. Aye, folks, I'm going to go for Rangers to draw 0-0, and hopefully it's 2-0 or 3-0 to Rangers on the night, and we go through with great ease. But just get through, And I think because I'm so desperate to just get through, I think we will just get through with a very painful, very boring 0-0. So Riff Raff, that film I was talking about, Riff Raff, Ken Loach film, first time I saw. Robert Carlyle, of course, it's Ricky Tomlinson who gets everybody to be nice to, I can't remember the actress's name, it's an Irish lassie. She's playing the character Susan. She ends up doing heroin and that, but she wants to be, she's a singer and an actress, and she's Robert Carlyle character's girlfriend in the film, and so she goes up to sing in a local pub, and she's trying to sing Always on My Mind, as Rangers very much are for us. It's been a off-key this season, very off-key. Her singing's terrible, so she gets booed off and laughed off by the punters in the place, but Ricky Thomas gets up and grabs the microphone. He's like, hey, whoa, this lassie here's trying, she's putting herself out there. She's trying her best. You just get behind her. She's feeling absolutely terrible now. Get her back out here. And she comes back out and she goes, if I can get by with a little help from her friends, what would you do if I sang out a key? It's great. It's a great moment. But builders, they're all builders in Riff Raff. The characters, they're playing builders, and that's the story. I've got builders in my street, haven't I? I was telling you, builders in my street. And after we beat St Mirren 5-1, I suddenly realised they've been there all summer. There's just a house along the road. I don't know what it is they're doing to that house, but I don't know if they're rebuilding it or whatever, or putting an extension up or something. They've been there for months on end. And I was only on the Sunday, it was only after we beat St Mirren 5-1, I realised they hadn't been there on the Saturday. They're usually there 6 days a week. But they hadn't been there the previous Saturday, the day before, and I thought, oh. And on the Monday morning after we beat St Mirren 5-1, I was out about early doors, and I get back to my house at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they weren't there. They're usually there by 9 o'clock in the morning. They weren't there at all. And it was 10 o'clock. They turned up, and it was like getting Celtic in the draw. We beat St Mirren 5-1. Yeah, I've got Celtic in the next round. That kind of thing. There's still a lot of work to be done just to get us into the Conference League group stage. Never mind actually win the SPFL Premiership. There's a lot of pain to be endured yet. And it's going to be a long road, folks, but it's up to Rangers to build on what we did versus Jablonec last week. That level, kind of flat foundation we seem to have finally started to lay. We don't get any buys in Europe these days, but if we can all accept the positives from last Thursday and bring Cammy Devlin back out onto the stage as the season progresses and lay off big Manny Fernandez, try to accentuate the positives, we'll find that Rangers do indeed get by with a little help from their friends. And let's be honest, we are their only friends. We are their only. No one likes us. I do care sometimes. I do care about that, but I care about Rangers. Handmade films. It's a George Harrison's production company get mentioned in Mastermind all night, and I jumped in there straight away because With Neil and I is made by Handmade Films, and that's one of my all-time favourites there. You want low budget, you want a film made by George Harrison of the Beatles. They're in the King's Arms in Penrith, With Neil and Marwood, and it's they're actors. It's a film about thespians, obviously out of work thesps, and Withnail is in love with Marwood, or more, he wants to keep him down at his level. Withnail's a fantastic actor; he's very talented as well, but he's just no. He only wants to. You're capable of indulging of anything other than pleasure, aren't you? He just wants to take the drugs and do the drinking, and he's not getting any parts because he's such a waster. But Marwood, who loves the drinking and loves the drugs, and he's his only flatmate at the time, he wants to get on with his acting career, and he's got this offer at repertory theatre. Its journey's end, significantly enough, and coming to the end of their relationship, coming to the end of the 60s, the greatest decade known to man. So that's no coincidence. But he goes and he phones them, and he's not heard. He phones his agent. He's not heard in yet, and he tells within the pub, and he tells Withnail. Withnail says to him, "Would you want to go to Manchester for anyway? Play a bloody soldier." He says, "Don't I bloody well do." And Withnail's idea is that you should be Royal Shakespeare Company. You shouldn't be doing repertory theatre. You shouldn't be going to the regions to do any theatre. You should just sit in a flat and get pissed, drink yourself to death with me. But he says, "Don't I bloody well do." It's a great little theatre, and that's what I feel what it's like with the Conference League. It's a great little theatre. We need Europe. I want Europe. I want Europe for Rangers. We could do great things in the Conference League. We could get ourselves into knockout football again. It could really help our season the same way it did under Steven Gerrard when he was doing his rebuild. It took 3 seasons, and a lot of us are thinking that's what we might need to do under Derek McInnes. The Conference League, I think we can cope with that. That's not going to distract us from our domestic duties or domestic ambitions. It's going to finance it. It's going to empower it, I think. What do you want to go to the Conference League for anyway? Go and play Larne away from home, don't I? I bloody well do. It's a great little theatre over in Larne. I want to go there and play them. Or Hollywood films. You get the founder of the Actors Studio, Lee Strasberg, an acolyte of Stanislavski, who first production in the Moscow State Theatre of Uncle Vanya, Vanya Dragojevic. Anyway, I was talking about Thesps, a film about Thesps, and I'm talking actually Lee Strasberg as Hyman Roth in 2, responding to Al Pacino's Michael Corleone, who's asking who gave the order to kill Frankie Pentangelo, and Lee Strasberg's Hyman Roth is no happy about that, and he tells him all about who put a bullet in the eye of Mo Green and won. And I was upset and all that. I was angry, but I knew Mo. He was always going about mouthing off and all that. He's one of the kind of guys. But I didn't ask who gave the order. This is the life we have chosen. And I feel as if this is the life we have chosen. Rangers should be in Europe. It's a rebuild. We got in Derek McInnes. That's why our only chance of European football this season is the Conference League. This is the life we have chosen, and let's make sure we do it properly. I'll talk to you very briefly after the game, troops. Enjoy it.